Good evening, YouTube. All right, so right now, Matt Martin is in a car somewhere. He might be at a truck stop. He might not be.
I'm
He could be
here.
out there hunting. He could be out there hunting for the truck stop serial killer in turf. If you don't know who that is, you really got to look into it. There's probably a podcast out there about somewhere. With us tonight, though, tonight and tonight only, we have a very special guest. Kolby, go ahead and introduce yourself real quick.
Hey, yeah, I'm Kolby, and I'm part of the Autmow network, and I'm located in Wichita, and we specialize in robotic mowers.
Outstanding. So also with us tonight, we've got Mr. Ray Ito. Ray, how are you way out there in Hawaii right now?
Well, today I'm, enjoying a nice day, sort of.
Sort of. Well, you're here with
Enjoying
us now, Ray, so of course it's going to be a nice day, right?
Absolutely. I mean, Thirsty Thursday is the highlight of my week.
It is for mine, too. And you know what? I want to show everybody here something real quick. And if you're a member, you'll have access to get this. And if you don't know if you're a member or not, slide on down there just below the video that you see there and click the membership button and go ahead and join us in whatever way you feel is necessary and appropriate. However, I do want to show this off. Compliments of our fearless producer, Mr. John Pinkerton, has created these beautiful Scotch glasses, which, of course, I'm drinking beer out of because if I drink brown liquor or brown water, bad things happen. So I try to stay with the beers. But in any regard, take a look at that. Customized with our Thirsty Thursday logo and the Grass Factor logo. Certainly a nice touch, J Pink, don't you think, for Thirsty Thursday? Even if you're drinking French roast like Ray is right now.
Yeah, even if you're drinking French roast.
Actually, when I get mine, you're gonna see me set up with a Virgin Mary.
A Virgin Mary. Okay.
Yeah, Virgin Mary. Maybe some what, Ryan?
I was going to say maybe some O'Douls because that's what all beer drinkers drink when they're not drinking beer.
Actually, what it's probably going to end up in the Virgin Mary is most likely some additional vitamins and minerals, and yeah, because I try to stay healthy, and Matt is laughing right now.
I was just going to say that if you would like a custom rosary, I'm sure we can work one of those out for you too. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that too. Whatever you need,
right? We can do that.
We want to support your journey towards health and wellness and vitality. Always, always. All right. So Kolby reached out to me. Oh gosh, it's been a month or so now, and he had a lot of really cool things to say. Now I'll back this up and say for a second. If you don't know about Autmow, I know a little bit. I'll let Kolby fill in the details. So I think I know the guy. I know the guy who founded Autmow here in Columbus. His name's Jeff. I'm not going to give out his last name. He's a super good guy. And, a little bit of his background and story was that 7 or 8 years ago, he really wanted to buy a robotic mower, right, for his house here in Central Ohio, and couldn't do it. There was nowhere to do that here in the United States. And so he was into marketing at the time and started to figure out, well, hey, if there's a niche here, and there certainly has got to be more people that are like myself that would like to buy one of these. Capitalism and the American dream took over, and Jeff has built a company and since franchised it and spread it across the country into many, many different areas of it to try and do that, to try and help people buy. I think you've got at least a couple of different brands, if not 3 or 4 now, Kolby. So I'll let you kind of fill in the backstory of Autmow, of what you know that I might have missed out on, and how you came into it and what your background is in turf in general.
Yeah, so my story is pretty similar to Jeff. He was just better at it than I did, and I decided I didn't want to, start from scratch, so I just joined the network. We're not really a franchise, though. I don't really know. Well, we were kind of independent operating, and we kind of have work with the manufacturers independently a little bit. But yeah, no, well, I was the same way. I was not a believer, and I installed one on a customer's yard and a 2-acre property, and I was pretty blown away. And I said, "There's something here, probably." And since I'm in the industry, my family has been that. I decided that I should probably behoove me to check it out and see what they can do, and I've been impressed for the most part ever since.
That's good. So how long has that been since you installed that first unit then?
It's been about 5 years, and yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of support. It was just kind of figure it out on your own. So I learned a lot, and it's a lot better now. I mean, a lot of these companies have really invested quite a bit of capital and money, and they're advancing very, very quickly. The wireless one just came on this year, and it's pretty impressive. Even week to week, the new updates, what they can do is impressive. It makes you pay attention.
So tell me about
commercial.
For sure. So let's take this at the homeowner level first, and then let's graduate up to the commercial side of things, because this is an interesting topic, and I do think that, at a homeowner level, I guess when you go out and talk to folks, right, in Wichita, what are some of maybe the biggest, I guess their biggest needs of why they need one or why they think they need one, and then maybe when you're going to close the sale, maybe what are some of the biggest objections you hear that are either the biggest or the most common ones?
Yeah, so really, you have the people that just think they're cool and they just want one, and those are the easiest. So they almost know more about them than you do by the time you get there. So that's a pretty easy thing to close on. And then a lot of people, just price. I mean, things are getting so expensive, so people are looking at they don't want to change the oil, they don't want to, blades. They don't really want to pay someone else to do it. A lot of my customers, surprisingly, have been kind of in the older kind of demographic, the 65 and older, that didn't want to do it anymore, but they didn't want stranger people on their property, so they opted, and they're very easy to maintain and they're light, and I was kind of surprised at how quickly they grasped the technology and they just ran with it. So some of the biggest complaints, I'm in fescue markets, so they don't stripe, probably the biggest. And then you get people that say, "Well, they don't pick up leaves, they don't trim," which, I mean, a mower doesn't trim a mower doesn't trim either. You have to trim regardless. So, but so the new technology, it's hard to educate people, and people just can't get their minds around how it works, and is it going to be better for me? Is it going to cause more problems than it solves, and stuff like that?
No, I think that's right, and I think that's the one thing that people, especially homeowners, maybe miss out on, right? That this isn't the 100% silver bullet solution for your lawn, but it's going to take, depending on where you live and what kind of yard you have, anywhere from 80 to 95% of the work off your plate, right? Like that's the selling point, not necessarily that it's going to do everything under the sun. Yeah. Then people, because the tractors just kind of, I mean, I don't think it's any coincidence that most of my customers are on that 1.5 to 2 acre site, to where it's just expensive. You're either going to pay someone $150 a week to mow it, or you're going to have to go out and buy a $5,000, $6,000 ride-on type unit, to take care of it yourself and spend 3 hours to do it. So, and that's kind of where the price point is probably the sweetest. Is probably that $350, the high line, where you're paying like $75 a month, and if you can max it out at 2 acres, that's kind of the sweet spot right now. Is so.
Yeah, right now we'll talk about what's coming on the mowers at 2 acres.
There's a lot of factors. What grass type, how fast is that grass type growing? Usually, on a 2 acre site, you have maybe 20,000 square feet of actual fertilized and nice turf, and the rest of it's just kind of field grass. I haven't had any problem at all on those. But then I have some sites that are like 9 acres that are all fertilized, all irrigated. And, I've been experimenting in the spring, when it's wet and, it's growing an inch a day, they can run into a little bit of, I mean, it's not bad. It doesn't do a bad job. You can just tell it's not keeping up as good as it would, on a smaller area. I mean, the Husqvarna rates them at 1.25 acres, and I'd say that's pretty safe to go off of.
So then tell me about that. Like, so, and this is something I run to, and I know commercial folks would talk about the same thing, and Ray would probably even ask this question too. So let's put it in my world of, say, like a high school football field, right? That's, we'll just call it 2 acres, but that thing's got to play and look the same day in and day out, because maybe they have a soccer game on Tuesday, they've got a football game on Friday, and in between, maybe a practice, or who knows, right? So,
yeah,
how do you deploy these things to keep it the same day in and day out? I mean, obviously right now, I think that just requires more units to be more consistent, but you maybe take us to where it is
right.
now, and then where it's headed in the next year or two.
Yeah, so it's just a different way to look at things, right? I mean, 1 unit can do, 1.5 acres, maybe up to 2 acres. That's mowing all the time. So that's max nowadays. It can mow for 18 hours a day, and then it's going to ask a charge for the rest. So, and it covers 2,400 square feet in an hour. So that's roughly an acre a day of coverage you're getting. You can kind of use it that way. But obviously on a field, you have to actually play on the field. On the lawn or a commercial site, you don't necessarily have to go play a sport on it. So yeah, kind of the solution now is to have, multiple units. Husqvarna's solution anyways is the club solution. So you have multiple units on the same one. So you're like up to 3. So you just have it mow overnight, and then for the rest of the day it's good. Or the Echo has their big one that does 3 acres. So that gets on and off pretty quick. It's a pretty big machine.
So in terms of
future,
go ahead.
Yeah, and in the future, I mean, and we can talk about this too a little later, is probably going to be the Ciora, and that's, you're looking at a 3/6 that's going to cut in patterns, so it's going to cut in lines, and I sent some Jay Pickerton some video of that, so a little bit later, but that's kind of the future of commercial / sports turf would be the Ciora.
That's good. So the okay, so then for the commercial guys, right? The landscapers that are out there thinking, hey, this is going to put me out of business, right? If I'm a full service landscape, company, or if I do mowing along with Fert and Squirt and things like that. What have you seen not only in the Wichita market, but also in other markets and people that you talk to in the Autmow network, to bringing this into your business and having it make financial sense, at different properties, or converting customers over to it and that type of thing? Has that been something that is more commonplace now that the technology is more accepted, more widely adopted, or what?
Depends on where you're at in the country. Some places are a little further along than others. I will say, we'd love to have more people in the Outward Network come from the commercial side of things. I think there's me and a few other ones that kind of have commercial experience. And as to putting people out of business, that's not going to happen. I mean, you might lose some jobs, but to me, you're just replacing with higher paying jobs. So that's a win. There's always something to do. There's always weed. There's always on a commercial site. There's always trash, cigarette butts, and there's always something to do.
No, and that's what I mean. I said, I mean, when I say putting somebody out of a job, I don't necessarily mean bankrupting them, but to the extent that, okay, hey, we're going to leverage our mowing at this big commercial site that we know we have in the bag. It's always going to be here. Do you see folks doing that in certain instances in their business to say, hey, you know what, we don't want to come out here and spend 6 hours on the mow crew with 3 guys. We'd rather send 1 or 2 guys, make sure the the bots are good, pick up all the trash, pull some weeds, spray some stuff, whatever, weed eat, and be on our way. I mean, are people there yet in the way that they're looking at jobs and bidding jobs?
It's getting really close. I think some people will be making moves, but so kind of what a lot of people are looking at is reduction. So instead of needing 4 people on a crew, you might need 2, and you might have to have, which I don't know why people make turf islands in the middle of the parking lot, but you might have to go once a week or whatever, go out there and kind of hit those areas and do a little bit of trimming, do a little bit of trash and other things that you do on a commercial site. Or really, I mean, you could just get away from the weekly model. And what we kind of see is, you have your rights and you have your other units that are more like a traditional mower that, mow and cut. And it's just like a retrofitted mower. And then we have what we call on-site robotics. So that'd be like the Husqvarna. They have those stay on site. And I really like the on site. I prefer those to the rides that don't solve as many problems for me. Like you're trying to solve a little bit of problem, but you still need a trailer, you still need a truck, you still need guys to go move it around, you still have to change its oil, you still have to sharpen the blades. But the on site, I mean, you can pull up with this, a little Ranger and a little bit of equipment and go at it, and it really simplifies it. It makes it simple once you get your mind around how they work. It really simplifies lawn care. And I mean, the commercial people, I say, like, what's the biggest obstruction to growth in your company? It's labor. It's getting the right people in the right place. So if you can put people and make them do more higher margin work, I mean, that's going to be a win for everybody.
And that's where I was thinking with it just out loud. It's like, this solves so many people's labor issues, right? Because that has to be the most crippling aspect of the green industry right now, is nobody can find anybody to work. And as long as there's a labor shortage, and now all of a sudden you can take the guys who actually want to be there, want to grow with you, want to support the business, and now it allows them to exactly capture more of that revenue that the robot is producing, and not having to rely on someone who's calling in 3 days a week because they've got a doctor's appointment or a knee hurts, or insert said excuse that gets repeated 100 times through the course of the growing season, right? And you've got those 2-3 guys that are going to show up no matter what. It's like, they're the guys you've got to tell, like, listen, that's a nasty cut. Stay home. Like, let it heal for a couple of days before you start filling it up with do something. So it seems to me like it's a win-win. It's a problem solver.
Yeah. Well, I mean, putting someone on a mower that goes 15 miles an hour that weighs 700 pounds is a skill. It's a day. It can be dangerous. I mean, I'm surprised there's not more. We just had someone die, last month, rolling a mower over into a pond. So it's a skilled labor. People don't look at it as skilled, but it really is. So it's so much easier to train. If you don't have to train people to operate a 700-pound mower, training is very difficult. Before you trust people to get out there on those things. So it simplifies your training. Yeah, it's going to simplify your labor. It's going to better labor allocation, and you can focus on higher margin work. And I think you get a better end result, just in terms of cut quality. You might not get the stripes yet, but in terms of actual cut quality, you're going to get a very good cut. And it's always mowed, so the commercial sites love that, and some of the homeowners too. But it always looks good.
Yeah, from a commercial aspect, it just makes so much sense to me on so many different levels that if it hasn't been considered, what a great way to rebrand and market yourself as being something different. Like, because that's part of the stagnation that occurs within the industry, right? Is what separates me from my competition. Oh, well, the quality of my work, or I show up when I say I'm going to show up. But what a revolutionary idea of, I've got a fleet of robots that are going to take care of this, and then I've got a couple of really highly qualified people that are going to come in and finish out that extra 10%, 15% that keeps everything just in absolute pristine condition. I mean, just saying that out loud, I'm like, wow, I want that.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's what I tell customers too. I try to simply, it's the irrigation system that cuts your yard. Like, you don't have to oversee. You don't have to make it complicated. It just goes out there on a timer and it cuts your yard. Like, if something's wrong with it, I go repair it just like I would, an irrigation system. So I don't have to dig. I don't have to worry about solenoids. I don't have to. I hate irrigation, but it's just a simple system. They're easy to fix. They're cheap to fix. I mean, these companies have done a really good job of making things easy to. I mean, on a Husqvarna, every single screw involved in a Husqvarna is a T20, except for one. There's a T27. Thank you, engineers. That on the blades. But other than that, everything you can fix anything with a T20. You don't have to have someone with a special diesel, knowledge or transmission knowledge or hydro knowledge. It's just So you're opening here. So now anybody that's built a computer can fix the Autmow. I mean, my 9-year-old daughter helps me fix Automowers when they're out. So there's a lot of benefits outside of just labor and just maintenance, and it's just hard to get into. But yeah, they're just simple. They've done a very good job. I mean, I tell people, the Automower to Husqvarna is like the iPhone is to the Apple. Like if the Automower fails, Husqvarna fails. So they're not going to let it fail. It's not some novelty or toy. I mean, it's a serious unit.
Ray, you've heard that.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan, goose your audio, Ryan.
I said serious unit, Ray. You've heard those words before, right?
I should have thought about that before I came up. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said it.
Yeah, I've heard. No, I've heard that, and I'm just envisioning, a mower like that for what I could call higher cut turf. I'm just envisioning it, and that is why, for example, believe it or not, in my market, I tell people, because of various logistics, you are an appropriate site for something like, say, St. Augustine grass. And the reason for that is because I'm familiar with the cutting mechanisms on these automowers. And so in order for something like this to be relevant, you need to have the right kind of turf grass, that matches the mower.
And that's a real
Yeah.
good
There's a lot
question.
of truth to that. Yep.
Where do these things? Where do they struggle? Like like grass types in particular, because I've seen people with all grass types using them, but I'm just saying, like, where, if you were going to rank or put, hey, these are the ones that you got to be really careful with, and these are the ones that it's super easy to maintain. What would you say based on your experience?
Oddly enough, what's funny is, they were obviously made in Sweden, and they had no idea what Bermuda was over in Sweden. And we tried to explain it to them, and they just didn't believe that was a grass. So the first thing they did when they got off the plane, they look at this, that's not grass. They picked up a stole, that's not. What is this? It's not. But oddly enough, I think that's probably where it shines the most. Even though it wasn't designed to cut Bermuda, it really does a fantastic job on Bermuda. I don't have any experience on Zoysia, so I can't say that.
I do.
Or
I
St.
do.
Augustine.
Because I have somebody here locally that tried an automower on, what is that, Xeon Zoysia? Big fail. Big fail.
That's not the fault of the mower. That's because that grass sucks.
That's because that grass sucks. Yeah, I mean that is not. Because I, am also on this basic campaign where if I were God, all of these trendy Zoysia varieties and C. paspalum would all be gone, and your grass types would be between either common Bermuda or St. Augustine, because I can see an automower doing very well on something like common Bermuda, which is not nearly as dense, and it doesn't have such a low mowing requirement.
Yeah. They've done. I mean, we've had them on golf courses on Bermuda. Like I said, we haven't had any on Zoysia, so I can't speak to Zoysia. The biggest problem with fescue is getting the mow time right. Like, you don't want it running all the time on fescue. It's going to lay it down and trample it, and it's not going to look good. People just love them. So they want to put it on a 8,000 square foot property and have it mowed 24. It's like, that's not how you do it on fescue. You have, it only needs to mow like 3 or 4 hours a day, on a property like that, if you have a bigger unit on there. So that, I think that's the biggest challenge on the fescue, and keeping the blades sharp. Some people want to change them once a year. It's like, hey, you got to change them at least once a month. Adult blade is the same on a reel, on any mower, a dull blade's bad. So
Absolutely. I mean, that's and the other factor about this whole Autmow situation is true or false. You set height of cut when you are setting up the unit, right?
No.
you can adjust it. I mean, there's a range that you can choose from, and if you want to go down, you can't go from 3 inches to an inch. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to go from 3 inches to 2.8 inches to 2.6 inches to 2.4 inches. So you have to be kind of mechanical. But yeah, I mean, this isn't something that's going to come in and cut 3 inches off your grass at once.
Yeah, because for example, part of correctly maintaining a grass, like say, a warm season grass, like say your zoysia or your Bermuda, is being able to at this moment cut it down, not incrementally.
Yeah,
just cut it down. That's
and we still continue to mow. Yeah, on some of the sites.
Yeah.
It's just that's just the year to get out and stuff. Yeah, they're not going to replace mowers. That's not what necessarily what they're looking to do. They're just looking to with labor and other things like that. But there's always going to be a place for physical, actual mowers.
Yes,
yeah,
because
it's in between, right? Right, Ray?
Yeah, it's in between, and because I even can see this in turf grasses, because I'm in that world where everything is kept below an inch. That you can't oversimplify maintenance or even mowing of a grass under an inch. That doesn't lend itself well to oversimplification or automation unless you tell me that you have an actual robotic 11-blade reel that can vary height of cut on command.
Well, I mean, they've done studies at like the University of Georgia and some other European, and I think JP has some slides that I sent them that they performed slightly better than reels. I mean, I don't think enough to say they do better significantly than reels, but the quality was considered slightly better. Yeah, those are some of the slides on the top SQ, and then I'm not really sure what Manila grass.
I know exactly what Manila grass is. Manila grass is Zoysia matrella, which is very similar in texture to Z52.
Oh, okay.
Southeast Asian zoysia, baby.
Yep. Korean. Yeah, so, but yeah, like you said, I mean, you do more than just mow grass. I mean, there's other things you have to, you're going to have to do to it. Yeah, that's kind of the cut on. I just changed the blades on that shot right
recently
there.
Replaced. Kind of, yeah. Recently replaced.
So if you want that kind of quality, you're going to have to do it about once a week probably if you want to maintain, that level of cut like that right there.
Right,
which
because
is what they kind of recommend for sports field.
Just for everybody at home, how much is it? How much does it cost to change a set of blades? What's the parts cost?
It's like $1 a blade, so it's like $3. I mean, a homeowner can do it once a month. I mean, if you're not, I mean, that's not everybody necessarily needs that level of cut.
Sure.
But that is with a once a week change of the blades, and I don't know if you know this, or is that on the zoysia grass?
That's
because okay, because I'm familiar with having to mow like acres of zoysia a month and maintain that depicted quality of cut. There's zero tolerance for any kind of shredding of leaf tips. Zero tolerance for it.
Yeah,
How
so I mean,
complex is it to change the blades?
you need a P2 in about 5 minutes. These little screws, so you just flip the mower over, and there's little holes that line up, and you just unscrew them and put them back in. It's a lot easier than sharpening a reel. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah, that's definitely for sure.
It's a lot easier to sharpen a reel. However, what you said about once a week, I could imagine putting an Autmow on a Zoysia lawn and needing to change the blades every week, if not more often. I could imagine doing that.
I need to get Husqvarna to send you one, right?
Well, actually,
I think to Hawaii.
Somebody already got an Autmow, and his name is Sean over at Hawaiian Turfgrass, and that's how I know how an Autmow performs on Zoysia.
Is he changing the blades once a week, or?
Well, he knocked it down with a greens mower, and then he tried to use it in maintenance mode, after it got knocked down and thinned out, and it didn't work well enough to be commercially acceptable. It didn't work that well.
He might have had it on. It might just not work on Zoysia. I don't know, but it might have been just too big of an area, or not the right mower, or he's not changing the blades. There's a lot of factors.
Or else not even the right kind of Zoysia grass, because I know you happen to try it on a kind of Zoysia that is extremely challenging to mow. So I can't necessarily blame the machine, because I know that for that one type of Zoysia, it is hard to mow, and I have challenges mowing it even with my Toro Greensmaster 1000 with the extra hardened blades.
So far,
because
of
it's
all
just
the
like
brands, that are out right now, which are your favorite?
I mean, nothing's really close to Husqvarna right now. They've just been at it longer, and they have more resources invested into it. I mean, the Echo has the ball picker, which that's really cool. And Husqvarna can't pick up your golf balls in your driving range. So if that's what you need it to do, then the Echo's would be a good option. But no one else is paying universities to do quality studies and everything. I mean, Husqvarna's the one doing all that. So I'm kind of a fanboy at the moment for them. I wouldn't mind some decent competition, and there's some companies doing some cool things, but they're still a little bit away from Husqvarna.
I'm gonna flip back to the commercial side of things, and I'm just gonna throw a brand out there that you may or may not know anything about. But being in that space, I thought you might be able to shed some light on it, and that would be Greenzie, Grenzie. Are you familiar with that company?
I thought Greenzie was working with Right exclusively now.
Really?
I think. I mean, I could. It seems like that. It seems like Greenzie is working just with Right, and they kind of. I don't think they're going to work from the bottom up to create something. I think they're just going to retrofit. Or right now, Rights, but I think in the future more. Unless I'm getting the name of the company.
What's your take on Grays? Have you heard of that?
I don't know how it's going to be. Every electrical engineer I talk to say solar can't power something like that. So I don't know how without the charging station or because I know Greenzie has said that because they tried to do with a mean green and they just didn't get the run times out of the mean green because of the battery. So I don't know. I don't think a solar panel is going to help grades out too much. But I mean, they could obviously change that. So. But like I said, I like that Yeah, I like the units that stay on site. I prefer those because, like a Green Z or a Graze, I still have to have a trailer. I still have to have, a big truck, and I still have to pull it. I still have to get it out and put it out on the thing. And they can only go 3 miles an hour, so I'm not really sure if a guy going 10 miles an hour, it might be. I don't think it's going to save me any labor time. And they still, in terms of the weather, you don't have to worry about the weather anymore because it's always cut. So, you're still going to be limited in the weather in terms of the Green Z and the Green Z mowers. If it's too wet, they're not going to be able to mow, just like a commercial mower wouldn't be able to mow.
So on that's another good point that you just brought up about on-site mowers. Go ahead. All right. So the okay. So the one thing that always comes up when I talk to folks about these things, and some of the bigger in what I want to call institutional turf, right? So this is K-12 schools, parks and rec, things like that, universities. The two things that come up a lot are vandalism, safety, and I guess you can call one more thing would just be, people outright stealing. It's just theft. So talk a little bit for the average person that's listening. How do you deal with those issues, right? The vandalism, the safety concerns of if somebody runs into it, bumps into it, flips it over, whatever, and then the theft piece. What happens with all that stuff?
So theft has kind of stopped being a thing with them now because there's been a couple of times where thieves have stolen them and then put them in their storage lockers, and the police, they track it on their phone, and the police go there and they, find their little hideout with all the other stolen goods. So thievery isn't vandalism would be much more of a concern to me than just someone smashing with a baseball bat or something than stealing it.
So,
which insurance is going to cover. Well, it depends on the model, but the Husqvarna is, if they have the X, or you put a GPS tracking chip in them, then not all of them are, but a lot of them do. So, in terms of safety, we had them at the art museum, and there's quite a few people down there, and a lot of people like to ride their bikes, and we had it crossing over the pavement, and we didn't have any. Those blades, aren't going to hurt you, even if they might hurt you, but it's not, you're not going to lose a limb. They're so far into the mower that it would be difficult to even get your foot or hand even under there without tripping one of the other sensors off before it even got there.
Excuse me. So
I was going to say,
you flip it over,
if you pick it up, the blades will stop.
Yeah, blades stop instantly. Any left sensor goes off, it shuts down. Yeah, I don't know. I think in Europe up to like 2 or 3 million of them. I don't think they've had any serious injuries from them. So, and I know other plants, around here in Wichita that have gone to like automated systems. Like even our grocery stores now have automated sweepers that go through them. And I think the safety, I think they're just safer than the alternatives.
Yeah, nothing like getting run over by somebody in a grocery store with the propane-powered floor buffer, because that is a risk.
Caller, you're live. Caller.
Who's calling in?
Are you there?
Caller.
Hello?
Hey.
I think this is the guy that invented the 2-cycle lawn boy that all of our dads had growing up. Oh, that was sad.
I don't know what's going on.
2-cycle lawn boy hung up. He got stage fright. Those are the best. Can we just talk about lawnmower pantheon here for a minute? Because Ray, cover your ears. The greatest mower ever invented was the Lawn Boy 21. That thing was like 25 to 1. 2-cycle.
Dual blade. That discard.
Yeah, that son of a bitch would last forever.
Yeah,
actually, I don't disagree with that, because you know what those 2-cycle lawn boys are good for? Chopping trash on steep embankments.
Caller, you're live. Can you hear us?
Hello, long time caller.
Long time caller, first time
Robot mower
stroker.
must be causing interference with this call.
Yeah, don't hold it so close to your ear; it can cause cancer. Whose phone's ringing now?
Mine.
Is that? Oh,
This guy.
I thought that
don't
was
know what this
somebody's.
guy is doing, but he is messing with us.
I know who it is. I know that voice very well.
Yeah, I know who it is too. He's a robot mower owner, so I don't think he's here to set you straight, Kolby. I think it's other people here. He wants to.
Yeah,
make a mess.
he's
No, I
he's
like
mad
the
at me
guy-
right. Yeah, he's mad at
No, I
me
mean, I put 'em in
because
golf course. No one, yeah, no, they've impressed the supers. I mean, we're hopefully moving forward with a big golf course project, and they weren't a believer in it, and I put it out there for a couple of months, and no more clippings. It's always cut.
Mhm.
It's just it really. I mean, on undulation, I mean, it's really hard to beat how well they cut on undulation. No scalping. It's the membership even liked it. That was my biggest concern, but they were all fans. So
okay, cut appear it looks cut. However, I think of turf in terms of more than just keeping it cut, because I also think in terms of thatch and density management. It's more than just
No, those
cutting
are-
it.
when you have like a
I'm gonna
a 17-year-old kid on a zero turn is your other option, then or on a Jacobson,
No.
$60,000 Jacobson, then
I'm-
you know.
I'm gonna push back a little bit, Ray. I'm gonna say that that's the thing is like the point of these
I'm not giving
is to
up.
only.
J Pink just can't.
Can you
figure
hear
out
us
how
or
to get
what?
The audio to come to the phone.
Just talk to us then.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us now?
All right, you guys keep going. We'll just hold on a second. You guys just keep talking.
All right. So all I'm pushing back on is this: is that like these aren't meant to be the all-encompassing solution. Like I think the way that these end up getting deployed is going to be very different from the homeowner level in every step of the way up to the highest levels of turf grass management. You're still going to have to do cultural practices. You're still, especially at the highest levels, you're still going to have a qualified professional looking out at those greens, not greens, but tees, fairways, and roughs every single day at those sports fields every single day. Like that's not going to go away. I think the whole point is, and this is what Kolby's trying to say, is that at least from what I see in my vantage point, in sports turf, let's just take that for a second, and then I can talk about golf courses too. People are strapped for time, right? And what is the biggest time suck of anything that we do, right, out there in those types of situations? It's mowing. Now let's think about like what you just said, Kolby. Let's talk about the 1.5 2-acre lot that somebody has that spends 2-3 hours mowing on a zero turn. What's the biggest time suck there of their lawn care efforts? Mowing. So take that time, reallocate 100% of it, 75% of it, 50% of it, 25% of it. I don't care how lazy of a bastard you are, you can still get some good shit done while you're waiting for that thing to mow. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And if you're already cut and you're chasing behind it doing verticutting, if you're doing phrase mowing, if you're doing aerification, if you're doing whatever, those are times where, like if I'm aerifying fairways on a golf course, I'm not putting that mower back out there until our holes are healed over. Is that a detriment, to buying it? Is that a barrier to buying it? Hell yeah. No, it's not. So that's one of those things where you got to realize what the limitations of it are. Just like, a real mower, like, hey, when it's super wet, I can't put that out there. When it's super high, I'm going to have to cut it twice. Maybe I don't have to have that issue anymore because the automower is able to get out there sooner and do, and mow sooner in a time where we're really wet, things like that. So I just think it's another tool in the toolbox. It's an overplayed, overused cliche line these days. But man, if there was ever something that was going to come in here and at least make a difference in what we do on a day-to-day, this is it. Now, I'm very
Yeah.
interested to see the Sciora. I'm very interested to see how that plays out. I'm sure the testing that they've done in Europe is extensive. I think what they're going to impact, what they're going to find in the States is vastly different than what they see in Europe. It might take them a year or two to figure it out. But what you said, I think before we went live on YouTube, you know, the updates that come out day in and day out for these things, it's not like you buy a piece of red, orange, or green iron from one of the big three, and the updates are you buy that first model year. Guess what? You're probably going to eat some shit because they're using you as bait, right? They're going to let all the sharks and all the industry come out and figure out what's wrong with that thing. And guess what? Maybe you get an update. Maybe you get a little bulletin how to fix it, how to work around stuff. But for the most part, I think with these machines, they're so simple. There's really not. I don't want to say there's nothing that can go wrong with them, but there's very little that can go wrong with them, to the extent that it's not design challenges that you're trying to overcome, right? It's going to be firmware and software updates that you're able to do in sequence, right, and in cycle as you're mowing and maintaining. So I don't know. That's my whole thing. Is like I understand the apprehension and I understand where we're still in that early adopter phase of the whole acceptance curve of these things, but the people that get in on these things early, and Kolby, kudos to you for seeing the light, as long ago as you did. But they're still, as cool as it's been to this point. Like, man, there is a whole host of applications for these things that are completely untapped at this moment.
Yeah, here's my pitch. To sorry to cut you off if I did, but my pitch to Ray, because I've been following Ray for years, on lawn side. So Ray is someone I definitely look up to. So, I mean, my pitch would be, the people I think that get a hold of this technology first are going to shape this technology, so we can shape, the industry in a very, I think, positive way. Because if we don't, then someone else is going to. I think that the things that I've seen that are, down the road, I think, are going to have an impact. And I want to be the one that curates that, and helps move that along, and then helps solve actual problems. Like I'm looking at there hasn't been a pre-emergent technology on the market for how long? Well, what if we can use technology to help with our pre-emergence? So we don't have to rely on these newer chemistries that have to come out on the market, and they have to spend billions of dollars to get these out, and so I think the ones that get to it first are going to shape it, and I want to be, and people like Matt and Ryan and Ray, I want guys like us that have a passion and care about turf to shape it, because that is definitely going to impact the industry. Just from a labor standard by itself.
I agree, and I think that's going to be the path forward. Is going to be, you see what some of the guys in golf are starting to do with it and have been for the last couple of years. Really, is where it's starting to take off. I think sports turf is well behind. Echo made a big push and really kind of fell flat a couple, 2-3 years ago to really penetrate the market. So I think with what's coming down the pike with Husqvarna now, like even the EPO system is functional for a lot of folks, right? But Sciora, and you can describe what EPOS is real quick. And Matt, I know you wanted to say something, so I'll shut up. But Matt, go ahead and say whatever you're going to say, and then Kolby, if you can kind of go through for Husqvarna what EPOS is, and then what Sciora is.
I was just going to say that the functionality and the functional engineering and the electrical engineering is there. And like you were saying with software updates, you think about it like, how many software updates or iterations of software are being sent out to Teslas now, and you get this whole slew of new feature with your car simply through a firmware update or a software package that you install, or even on your phone, an operating system update. It's when you apply that kind of functionality to something like a mower, it makes that initial investment a little bit more tolerable. And I think now that we've reached that stage of the engineering and product development flow of the development of these products, I think if there's ever a time to jump on it and embrace it. And the people who are purveyors of these types of equipment now, exactly like what Kolby said, you get to shape the future of it. And that's why, I can't wait to see an autonomous permagreen out there making applications that does not make the same mistakes that I made over the years, right? I think about how many lawns I killed purely out of fatigue or being rushed, or a dog was running into the backyard at me and it scared me, and or it just jumped against the window and scared me, and I accidentally sprayed a hydrangea or something. I mean, all of these things have happened and have led to accidents, and expensive ones at that, or miscalculating drift, because by the time I looked at the weather that morning to the time I got to the property, all of a sudden I've walked into an issue. But now, if you've got a computer that makes real-time decisions and precision-based decisions, and you still get to be the brain behind it, right? Like, you're the brain that is, directing it on where to go, to when, and scheduling it, and all that fun stuff. You still get to be the business owner, and also the brain that plays a role in developing the functionality of these types of things. I mean, I think it's stunning, and I embrace it 1,000%, and I don't think it can get here fast enough, truly.
Oh, that was better than me. Better than I can say it.
He's a pitch man at heart. He loves a good pitch. He loves.
Yeah, I mean, the first time you meet Matt, you think you've known him your whole life. First time you talk to him on your phone, he'd be like your crazy cousin from Tennessee.
Watch it, Kolby. Watch it.
Okay, so Ray, I guess what what would be okay? We're trying to sell you now. All right, I'm serious. Like we've turned the whole focus of the next 30 or so minutes that we've got left in the show to you trying one of these. Okay, don't tell me where you can't use it, but tell me where you can use it. You've surely got to have a property or somewhere that you could take this thing and tell the property owner, whoever, to, hey, I just need to give this a chance, and I'll be back to do all my crazy stuff of scalping it off 3 times a year, scaring the absolute shit out of you, that make you think that your lawn's not here. But in between, there'll be this nice, comfortable looking piece of technology that'll keep you company, right? In between when I'm not here. It's like the Ray away from home, right? It's you can even put a picture of your face on it. Kolby can do that.
To be honest with you, I literally, again, I'm keeping into account different types of grass. And the other thing that has become pretty hot here is dwarf St. Augustine. The dwarf varieties of St. Augustine, they don't get as tall as Floritam, but in order for them to look at their best, they need constant mowing at approximately 2 to 2.5 inches. That's their maintenance requirement. They need that.
Okay.
That's an example of the kind of place where I would use an Autmow. I'd seriously use it on a place like that where I'm not concerned about thatch. I'm not concerned about developing density due to overly frequent mowing. It's just St. Augustine, and it doesn't do the kind of things that I'm concerned about versus, say, Zoysia or Bermuda. And of course, it's, as I said, and the level of expectation as far as appearance is a little lower as well.
I don't think you need to give up appearance and cut quality and all that kind of stuff. Like, is there What about a Bermuda site? That would make sense.
I mean, Sean's looks pretty elite.
Yeah, his looks pretty good on the surface. However, he has had, certain issues that I'm aware of.
I think it's from underfeeding it, but love you, Sean.
But then,
that whole. I think that's a good. Okay, so here, let me take Sean's apart here. I think that's a good example of what the technology can do. Take away the issues for a second, right? And I don't think those are necessarily induced by the mower. And I'm not talking shit on Sean right now. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm just saying, like, if you were just to say and slice out, okay, how does the mower perform, right? And what are its limitations and what are the positives that it's bringing, right? So I don't know. I think, okay, so you show up to a lawn, right? Here's what I'm thinking. You show up to a lawn and say you're going to scalp it, right? Well, let's say instead of the 4 or 5 days of growth that it might have on it prior to you doing that it's actually trimmed down to the exact height that you want it to be before you go do your scalp. Ray, do you do any hard cuts, by the way? What do you
I don't do any hard cuts.
What do you charge for a hard cut?
Well, nothing, because I don't do them. I really don't do them. And
you've been saving that all week.
Yeah, you've been saving that because of that whole
I just thought about that.
That other YouTube video. But anyway, Ryan, the deal is that here's the other consideration. Once I've taken, say, an Eltorozoa lawn down to the dirt, the expectation is that I manage that site such that that doesn't become a routine practice. Okay? And the way I make sure that it doesn't become a routine practice is I'm always watching nutrients, water, height of cut, and frequency of cut. I'm always watching it because it is very easy to mindlessly mow it at a set height of cut, and when you do that, that turf becomes satchy and spongy, and it is time to scalp it all out and haul away all that crap all over again.
So this is really like off the cuff. I'm just thinking about this, but Kolby, and I don't remember from the Husqvarna Fleet software if you can even do this, but are you able to track the battery draws? So like, okay, let's say I send this thing out on a mission to mow like the whole yard, like this El Toro Zorja, okay? And do I have a way to track and say, okay, hey, that time we used 32% battery to mow the whole lawn, and the next time we used 60% battery to mow the whole lawn? Is that possible to do that?
Oh my God, that would be
not with the wired units, but that kind of stuff is coming with the. I mean, it tracks everything.
So here's what I'm saying though: is that
here's the map that I have. This is my house that JP just pulled up.
Okay.
So I have a video too. So it's cutting my lawn, then it goes across the street and cuts my neighbor's lawn. So there it's going.
Do you have a Do you have a bumper sticker that says "I brake for automowers"?
I stand and make sure no one's coming.
We need that in our lives. We need
where it's going.
I brake for automowers. Okay, so here the only reason I asked that is because we don't have, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, like in high maintenance turf, one of the things that has become very in vogue is clipping volume, right? So we track clipping volume as a metric to then drive, do we need to apply nitrogen or not, right? And other nutrients as a result of nitrogen applications. So it would stand to reason if we're cutting the same area but we're using more battery, that we could assume, at least in part, depending on the weather conditions and things like that, that we're cutting off more grass in a given mowing, right?
And that's kind of things I'm talking about too. Is that for guys like us say this is information we need. Husqvarna just runs a program, and they put things on there. I'm like, why didn't you do that a long time ago? It's like now I can just access the battery voltage with a button. I'm like, well, that makes my life a lot easier on some of these situations. So they love the feedback, so they're always making them better. But they can measure the resistance of the blade, how fast that blade is spinning, so they can tell you how fast it's going. So when it's hitting an area that doesn't get cut as often, it can go over there and cut more often. So it's capable of making those kinds of measurements. We just need to tell them what measurements we need and what kind of specific, application of those measurements.
Amp draw.
Yeah, they can. Yeah.
So right there. So, this is what I'm saying is that it's trying to apply the lessons we've already learned for growing high-end turf, right? High-quality turf, but then using the data that we have available to extrapolate that out. And there's so much more that you can do with that. We can then take and overlay our fertility programming and figure out, roughly nitrogen release and things like that. We can overlay our weather data to help us do the same thing, because that's going to be heavily reliant on that. But to be able to have that and track it, you can track clipping volume, but it's all, done by hand. Literally, you're gonna have to take that bucket, that bucket from a greens mower, dump it into a measuring bucket, and then record that data and upload it or implement it, or enter it manually. So I don't know. I think there's a lot more to unpack, to use one of Matt's favorite verbs.
Oh, and I think we just lost Ryan.
Yeah, I think he
They
cut
don't
off.
rely on
But
me to keep the show. Trust me on that.
Oh, there he's back.
yeah, he's back. But because the reason why I'm even bringing this up is at every mow now, I'm literally taking a measurement and deciding how much I want to take off, and that is a calculus that I work with to ensure that the grass remains thin and short. You see, those are good words to me in my market. Thin and short.
I hear that a lot, Ray. I don't know why. It works though.
No, it really works when you have a grass that's an overly aggressive grower and a thatch producer. And at the same time, I'm under a lot of pressure. Please don't make that kind of mess in my lawn again, because it was epic and it was horrible.
I just think that the other thing too, that here's my big picture view, and I am absolutely, I want to say the F word, but I'm not going to. I'm absolutely effing nobody here, right? Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Appreciate that. I feel like we're on Springer right now. I just gotta. It moved a little bit when I heard that. So my big picture thing is that this technology is like the making arrowheads out of flint. Like, this is so perfunctory and fundamental, but the stuff that we're going to learn from it and be able to apply to all the other things that we do to turf, and it's not going to happen quickly, but there are so many more layers that you can add on to once you start to figure out the tech, once you start to figure out the spatial technology, once you start to figure out how we can use this to measure and quantify certain things in the turf grass system to be able to make better decisions and make more timely decisions, right? This is just using what is an easy, low-hanging fruit time suck that people find solace in mowing, yes, but a lot of people hate, and it's using that to learn.
So,
right, from a...
Sorry, Ryan, I interjected at the wrong time.
You're good.
But I was just going to say, this was
You're
sent
fine.
to me from a viewer This is his robot mode Bermuda lawn.
Right? Doesn't it look like shit? Look at that.
Well, it's hard to tell from afar. Looks good from far.
Okay, so then let's
Ray is
let's
just
think about this
difficult to
because
please, apparently.
He is. Okay, so I agree with you that up close the texture of it might be not what we want. And again, this is something where I'm curious of the guy from Hawaiian Turf on his process and his methods that he used to scalp down and then begin to use that Automower, that robot, as a maintenance tool, right? And I almost wonder, and this is kind of why we do want. I'm not advocating for this. If you don't want to send them one, don't send them one. But I would love Kolby to send one out there for you to write the book on how to do this. And I do think this is very important to me. I thought about this and I chuckled to myself now 3 times, and I have to tell this. You know that scene in Home Alone where Kevin puts the train in front of the window? He doesn't want the wet bandits to come in because he's scared of them. And they've got Michael Jordan as like a fathead rolling through the window. We need Ray, a fathead of Ray, rolling around on an Automower somewhere in Hawaii. I need that to happen. I need it.
With
J Pink can probably make the fathead if Kolby can get it on the mower and get the mower out there. But I think you could. I think if you had this and if you had an open mind, Ray, I think you would find a place for it. I sound like a salesman for them right now, but I'm not high on any one company or anything like that. I'm just high on the technology and the ways to deploy it. And I completely agree with Matt and Kolby. Like, it's up to people like us who want to just what's the this is the better way to say it, the F around and find out, Ray. This is the nice way of saying it.
The F around and find out. And again, I'm just looking at this from the point of view of what I need to deal with, what I've had to deal with over the years, and the measures that I've taken to make sure that my operation runs smoothly.
Got to. And go ahead.
I was just gonna say,
no,
this
we
is
need
another
people
one.
to put them through the ringer. Yeah, I mean, we need it.
10
That's the only way you
millimeter
get
after.
better.
Ray, this doesn't give you any faith, Ray. This is 10 millimeters after sand top dressing.
Let me see the up close. I mean, it's kind of shredded. I mean, I see the shredding. Okay, I see the leaf tip shredding. I mean, that's
You hear that, Sean? Your tip is shredded there.
How often are you changing your blade, Sean? Once a week?
I hope he I literally hope he is, because from sand dragging. Okay,
Yeah, he's
not the
claiming
mower.
It's from the sand drag.
Okay. Then that's passable. However,
Looks like garbage.
this is it does. However, this is happening on highly growth regulated and nutritionally depleted Bermuda. Kolby, let me that to put it in proper context for you, because I Sean and I have discussed his agronomic program, and that shortness is partially because he has that turf locked down.
In terms of growth regulation?
PGRs, yes. I mean, he's got basically got it on my idea of a growth regulation program. In other words,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It almost responds when you have the auto mower on there, like it's under regulation. I mean, like the dandelions, they'll start throwing up flowers like right at whatever height you're cutting. So they'll throw them up like at 2.5 inches or whatever. So the plants kind of make a adjustment whenever you cut that frequently.
I'm sure, but I'm just saying that in addition, he's put down a very good growth regulator application to, I guess, keep the Bermuda dwarf. You know, that's a key part of it. I think, in that, I think in order for this to work on a grass that tends to, have rampant growth in the summer, for example, you may be having to look at some agronomics to go hand in hand, with an Autmow, because I think it would be, it might not work well, for example, if you try to do this on turf that is growing like mad between, say, May through August.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've had them on bent grass. This is kind of what we've had them on at the courses, and I mean, everybody's been impressed. That's you're mostly getting around here is going to be bent grass.
Excuse me for a moment, folks.
Take that call, Ray. So yeah, I agree on the bent grass thing. That's probably the closest corollary to Bermuda grass, right, in terms of a growth habit. At least here in cool season grasses, and
stolen
everything
cool
I've
season grasses.
Yeah, that's what we grew up here in Canada, Matt.
Never heard of it.
Nope. So I think there's. I'm just trying to figure out. help me out, Matt. Like, where if you had this in, Tennessee, and you were back in your lawn care days, like, where would you be looking to deploy something like this in your business back then?
Any and everywhere I possibly could.
Well, let me ask you this, Matt. What was your number one reason you lost outside of death and moving? What was the number one reason as an applicator you lost it? Probably because they wanted to consolidate with who's ever mowing the lawn, right? If you didn't offer lawn mowing. I mean, I think most good applicating businesses lose their business because they just want to go with the long guy because they want to cut one check a month instead of, 4 different checks to 4 different companies.
Yeah.
So if you could say, hey, we can solve your mowing problem for you.
I think that is a good one, and I go back to applicator error. How many times I make a mistake that is purely due to fatigue, heat, the end of the day, a risky decision that didn't need to be made, miscalibration. I mean, literally over the last 12 years. How many times have I done that? A lot, especially when I was a truck and a hose pulling kind of guy, right? That is really where it starts to come in, especially when you're on acre number 6 of the day and it's 94 degrees outside and it's 84% humidity, and you're trying to truck a hose, right? And you pull up and you've got another 40,000 square foot property and you're like, man, I just don't know if I can suffer through another one of these today. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to try and do one more. And you pull it and you start walking, and then you get halfway through the property and you realize you've walked the same line 4 times back and forth. And you've walked the same line 4 times because you've run out of chemical and you had just enough to finish the yard, and like you've only sprayed 10% of it. That has happened to me. No lie. That has happened to me. And it's purely from a point of fatigue, right? And an applicator error, an unnecessary applicator error. And it's instances like that can create a problem. And it may not even, I may have been spraying something that was non-detrimental to the turf, right? But it's the fact that now the homeowner sees me show up, I spray a few passes in the backyard, I go knock on the door to tell them, hey, I have goofed up and I miscalculated how much chemical I had. I thought I had more than I actually did. And then I leave, right? And they're like, that was weird. Why did he show up, go spray 4 passes, and then leave? And what if my route's not back in that day in that neighborhood the next day, right? And I gotta either make a special trip over there, or I'm like, I'm gonna come finish it on Thursday because I can't get back over here. And they're gonna be like, okay, that's just weird. I've had shit like that happen before too. So all of these kind of culminate, and this is like the big game changer for me was when I went to just a simple ride-on spreader sprayer, right? Because the number of errors that took place in a given year were drastically reduced, right? And this is kind of that next frontier of drastically reducing operator error, and I am a huge fan of that, because for me, I can't stand the fact that I know I have the mental ability to get a job done, right? And in most instances, I have the physical ability to get a job done, but mistakes still happen. And if I can eliminate the physical aspect, if I can eliminate or even utilize something like an autonomous device as a means of checks and balance within my own head, right? It works to everybody's advantage, and it doesn't take any business away from me, because it's still my brain that I get to program into this machine to be able to operate in the same way that it currently does, right? And or to operate in the same way that I did. And then all of a sudden, you've got this. I don't know. I just think it doesn't make sense to continue down the road we're going when there are options out there like this that are becoming a thing. I think it should be fully embraced.
Well, for
Yeah, and that's why
some
the mowers themselves haven't made an impact on sports turf yet is because of the limitations of the wire. Now that EPOS is out there, you don't need a wire. You have much better control. Now you're starting to get people that have been thinking about it for a few years really starting to bite now, because now you can do those cultural. There's nothing stopping you from doing the cultural practices. You can go out there and bird slice and scalp and all those other things. And, you don't have to worry about the wire, and there's nothing stopping you from doing those in conjunction with the routine maintenance.
Because
I love it. I think it's great.
Well, and I'm going to go back to Matt's point about how for application technology, I would love to see an unmanned spray rig. I'd love to actually see that. And, the reason why is because I've been doing it for such a long time, and I know we as an industry, we have lost so many materials because EPA has determined that human exposure, even to the applicators, presents an unacceptable risk. To where I'd like to literally take that out of the equation when they're making the determination whether something comes to market or stays on the market. And it's like, oh, no problem, because this product can be applied autonomously with minimal human contact.
Yeah, and that's where choosing your chemistry is important. Like other chemistries are going to do well, in certain autonomous applications than other types of chemistries.
Well, because unfortunately, I was, in the industry before Matt, basically, because I'm actually an old man. I'm actually old. So I'm familiar with the 1980s and 1990s chemistry, which is, by the way, mostly gone by year 2000. And one of the big issues was human exposure.
It's a thing. it's a thing, and there are, and here's the thing, you know, when it goes into, I think about it from the standpoint of how far applicator softwares come, right? In the amount of self-programming that goes into customizing a piece of software like Real Green or Service Autopilot. You know, the effort you put into that, the more automated and streamlined that sector of your business becomes, right? And as these autonomous treatment devices or autonomous mowers begin to become more and more powerful, and you say the day that comes along where weed detection becomes a thing through some sort of sensor or photo eye or whatever, this technology is coming. Like there's no doubt about it. It is
there.
coming.
It's there. It's just putting it all together in a platform that is at a palatable price for the turf market, and then in a functional way.
And then you get the program which herbicide tank your applicator is going to pull from to do that, right? And so you may have a tank set aside with monument and sulfentrazone, say for instance, right? That's a tank mix, and when it recognizes sedge, it's going to do a direct application on it instead you know, versus, right, it could be the same applicator, and the guy next door to you may just run sulfentrazone, and he may run a low rate at like 4 ounces, but you're coming out with 6 ounces and trifloxysulfuron on top of it, and you're like, you see where there's a degree of separation there, because the nut sedge you spray is going to kill it dead, like gone, ain't coming back for the rest of the season, kind of sort of deal. And then the person who opted to go with a 4 ounce per acre rate, it's still going to come back, right? You know, you're going to see it if you're not getting those 3 applications down. So there's still that degree of separation between applicator to applicator, right? It's going to be who's willing to put out the better product, who's willing to program their machine to deliver that kind of result. And it takes a certain amount of skill and knowledge and time investment into the trade of turfgrass management in order to be able to tell that machine to do those types of things, to deliver those types of results. And that is coming, and it still provides the degree of separation. It still provides the competition. Again, it just eliminates the exposure aspect, which is a whole nother. I mean, you could dive into an entire 2-hour talk on the exposure limitations that all of a sudden are now. What a wonderful thing! What a wonderful thing! What if you could go out and get done 400,000 square feet in a day, right? Observe from safe points where you're not having to track through yards with an herbicide application, or highly targeted applications, right? That you're only hitting individual weeds, and you can monitor your robot throughout the property, and it limits everybody's exposure, everybody. And that way, when you come home at the end of the day, it's not like, you know, you've got a, I don't know about you, but it's like, can't wash my clothes with the rest of the families, or even in the same washing machine, right? And it's these simple things that we kind of adjust to as a lifestyle, that all of a sudden it reintegrates us back into, it provides a piece of normalcy that we're not accustomed to, that now we have. And I don't know, I think it's great, and it can't get here fast enough. The cost. Well, the cost aspect is the big limiting factor, right? As time goes on, the engineering and the manufacturing behind it is going to catch up, and then it's great. We get to apply our brains to these situations, and it's a win-win.
Yeah, and I think knowledge of chemistry has a more importance too. I mean, you might need something that has something like a tenacity that has a higher range of what it can control. But I mean, if you're doing frequentations, you can program them to do, 1 week, and then the next week, because the unit's on site, delta hay, then you're mowing, spray. In 2 weeks when you're mowing, go on the spray program again and hit it with tenacity again. So I mean, then at that point, I mean, how important are pre-emergence, in those kind of situations?
I mean, I think,
and I'm talking more like a professional, not like a lawn. I'm not talking like, I think the lawn stuff's so far away. Some I mean, I'm talking from maintenance from a sports field perspective here, not necessarily a home lawn. So there's a lot of challenges, and there's going to be quite a few challenges in a home lawn situation.
Well, and you think about it from the standpoint of you say how important are pre-emergence, how important is it as part of herbicide resistance management? where all of a sudden you can take off 2 years from applying pre-emergence and get, hit the reset button, so to speak, and opt for a post-emergent only program for a couple years, 2-3 years, maybe even 4 years. I don't know. And you get to make that judgment call based on your observations out in the field. Right. And you may say, all right, we're going to go post only. First year, you have great success with it. Year number 2, you have great success with it. Year number 3, it starts to get a little squirrely. It's beginning to look a bit out of control. And you can make an adjustment on the fly. Be like, all right, look, we're going to run a burn and return application here. We're going to burn it all down, get down to pre-emergent at the same time, hit the reset button on where we are. And it's an instantaneous adjustment. And I don't know.
Well, there's even a company I've talked to that I don't want to bring up the name or anything, but is going to have a camera on theirs. So now we're talking about not only can it's more than just something that cuts your lawn. I mean, it could be now it's something that can protect your it can guard your packages. It can do that. But from a pest control standpoint, I mean, what if we can prove to go back that's towards dusk, and now it's monitoring mosquito populations. So now, I mean, I can use the law lab to go spray on a set schedule because that's the only way to really do it. Now you can spray actually need it. Or, does Bayer want that, data? Does Syngenta want that data? I tell them I spray, 30 days ago I sprayed this property. This is what, the machine's capturing. This is the, the increase of the pest, populations after X amount of days in a real world situation instead of just having it, sprayed on a tile somewhere in the lab. I mean, you don't really necessarily get the accuracy, in my opinion, on those kinds of testings. So now we're getting real world data from, all over the world with their products. I think that'd be pretty valuable.
Some people are saying drones, and this would be my argument against drones, is that you've got blades rotating at how many thousands of RPMs out there, and that when we're talking about functional safety. That adds a layer of complexity, right? Of it accidentally running into someone. You're still, even though you can do a directed spray, right? You're moving up and down, and the chances of you coming into contact in these up and down movements or hitting an obstacle, it's a degree of complexity that I'm not sure is necessary.
Hell yeah!
When you can send something like we're watching your yard droid over here that can just walk over and zap it. Are you familiar with yard droid here?
I've never seen that before. Nope.
Me neither, and it looks a bit silly.
I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's some cool function. I mean, they're thinking in the right direction.
Yeah.
There's something that they 3D print. I'm pretty sure it's a prototype that was 3D printed, though. So you have to judge it on that merit.
I don't know if that's
right.
How I would feel comfortable applying herbicide or fungicide or fertilizer.
Or hey, JP, pull up a company called Auto Lawn, OTTO, and then Lawn. It's a watering system that kind of prints water, I guess, in a way. Like it's going to give you so you need less heads. You can put fertilizers through, something like this. So I mean, just think about. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Like, what is, as a lawn applicator, who's my competition? I think it's going to be stuff like this, that makes it easy. You just throw. I mean, think about from Ray, when Ray talks about adjusting pH, like how easy would it be to just throw some pH stuff in this thing, and have it every time it waters, it's incrementally lowering your pH,
Well, that's already established without the need for a computerized system, because you know what that's called, Kolby? You stick a dosatron after the backflow preventer and you inject your soil amendments into that water line.
Oh yeah, I mean golf courses use that, yeah. But I mean that thing's $300 and you just stick it in and you take it out in the winter and then you hook it up to a hose, when you need it. So it's just the easy. It's not just that. Yeah, that's been around for a long time, which is true, but it hasn't been easy to access it.
Yeah, well,
like it is. Yeah, like
actually,
affordable.
Or affordable, necessarily affordable, because I've talked to various people about injecting soil amendments into their irrigation system, and their point of pain comes when I tell them how much the necessary backflow prevention and actual injector pump is going to cost them. It's automatically a $1,500 setup approximately just for a residential sized lawn. It's about 1,500.
Yeah. Well, I think right now, I mean, that's at the stage of, your 5,000 square foot. I mean, that's not, going to do a acre with that thing. But I mean, how many houses are really an acre? Running around out there.
And even within, even with an acre, the only difference would become, size of injector pump. Other than that, everything's basically all the same. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see, I guess, the out-of-the-box thinking that has come up in the last 10 years. It's very interesting to me, but
it's been there. It's been there. It's just not been accessible. And now we need to educate people on the accessibility of the, I mean, running fertilizer through your irrigation is nothing new. I mean, it's on the label on lots of different products. Yeah. Now it's just easier.
In complexity there, though, is, Nick is saying distribution issues, and that's exactly. Think about how many poorly designed irrigation systems are out there with seemingly random, 360 heads that don't belong.
100 heads on 8,000 square feet property just drive me nuts.
Yeah, and it's so until if you have total control over the design, and even in just some shapes and areas are going to be just too complex with what we have available right now in irrigation systems to make adjustments on the fly to be able to make sure you're getting exactly the same amount of water to every area in a zone, right? So are you saying yes, that is there, or not there?
No, it's not there at all.
Goose, your audio, Ryan.
Mike.
Hang on. Yeah, even with these systems here, I think it's I don't want to say it's a fool's errand, but there's a lot of work that's got to get done. I think what you're going to find in what they're seeing already, there's a lot of really good work at New Mexico State that's going on with drip and underground irrigation, right, for this purpose, because then we really can, especially if we understand the physical structure and the permeability of soils and things like that, we can really dial in a lot of that and eliminate waste. And the next level of that then is what we add to that water, right, in terms of wetting agents, in terms of acid injection, fertility, whatever the case might be. To think that we're going to get anything better than 85% distribution uniformity on a rescom system or a residential commercial system is like almost impossible. Almost impossible. So I'll be the stick in the mud on the irrigation thing.
Yeah,
so will I. So will I. Me too. I'm going to be bad about that, because guess what I've been busy doing lately, guys?
correcting errors from dosatrons?
No.
Setting up robot
more fundamentally, fixing these half-ass designed irrigation systems where you have PGPs randomly thrown into a yard, for example, or just heads not square or triangular spaced. I mean, Matt,
yes, you're not kidding. That is a real, I'm going to use this term loosely, but that is a real epidemic of just horrifically designed irrigation systems.
I wouldn't even use the verb designed. Let's just back up. Slap together, right?
Yes.
Well, they're designed to make the company more money because they have to repair it more often. Let's just put it that way.
Well, yeah.
There's 100 heads. That's 100 opportunities to replace the head.
It's like somebody coming in and being like, and selling an $8,000 irrigation system on 3 zones, and then just cramming as many heads into it as possible, or someone selling a 3-zone irrigation system for 80,000 square feet and only having 4 heads on a zone, and saying they can cover everything. You know, it just you see such a drastic variability there that is so unpredictable, and you lose all control over those aspects. So fertigation just ain't there yet. But I know like in-ground irrigation systems are becoming more and more of a thing in Texas, aren't they? Like in Dallas Fort Worth, that's like the standard install now for an irrigation system is all subsurface drip lines. I may be wrong on that, but the pictures I've seen are all coming out of Texas.
I think you're in Southern California as well. I mean, you're seeing them in a lot of places that have water restrictions and have water use issues, right? To where that's sort of the BMP, good faith, whatever you want to call it, right? Way to
Actually,
continue to be able to install these. Go ahead.
Actually, the water conservation mandate in these water rationed areas is, the hill strip, for example, between the property itself and inside of the county's right of way, that narrow 5 to 10 foot strip of grass that goes between your lawn and the road. A lot of these water restricted areas prohibit above ground irrigation to be installed in those narrow areas due to concerns about runoff and overspray, where they say you cannot have your irrigation system shooting or running off water when it's in operation. So those are places where the Netafim drip line gets trenched into the area on a 12-inch grid, and that becomes your irrigation system.
Yeah, I think that's something too that, as we continue to evolve, like all these technologies and try, that's one of my biggest beefs too. So this is, Kolby probably sees this too, is that, they're attacking one small slice of the pie, right? Even if you conquer this issue, there's still all of these other exigent, issues within turf that you still have very little to no control over, right? All these other variables that still need to be accounted for. And I think that's what you're getting at, Ray, is that this isn't the end all be all, but my retort to that is that it's a huge step, right? It's a big step, and not just for what it can do, but what we can learn from it and continue to push the envelope with technology and turf. So, yeah, irrigation in a ResCom setting is one of the most maddening things I think you'll ever see, especially as a guy who came from a golf course where things are much more neat, tidy, reliable, uniform, all that. You get to ResCom and it's an absolute shit show. I mean, it's like going from fine dining down to the worst Carl's Jr. Hardee's you've ever been to in your life.
The ghetto McDonald's.
Yeah. We're not solving every problem. We're just progressing to solve some of the more annoying problems, I should say. I mean, I'd rather have human beings solving other problems than having them mowing, large acre areas. But hey, J Pink, if you could cue, I promise I'd show this too. So we do this real quick. But the line painter video that I showed you, the autonomous line painter.
I'm looking for.
This is a good subject. So I'll do you want, I can take it away on this one here. So the tiny mobile robot is something that Autmow picked up. In the last 6 months. I do not work for Autmow. This is just my job. Literally, it's my job to stay up on all this stuff and make sure that when people ask me questions, I'm not tripping over myself and being like, "Oh, I don't know about that."
Here I think I
I'll have
found
to
it.
go ahead and speak into. Aldo says Carl's is pretty turnt. I don't know about that. I can't. Matt, what would be your propensity to go eat at a Hardee's right now? Would you go get Hardee's right now if you could?
No. End of story.
No. All right, take it away, Kolby. Tell us about
this. Is the video we made. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So I mean, this thing, I think for the price point is pretty sweet. Because painting a line, I hate drawing out the line, and it's never straight. And I mean, this thing is just fun. You can do logos. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity here for some other cool stuff to do with it. I mean, I was thinking, you could if you're working for a sports field, if you wanted to do like sponsorships of fields, you could put corporate logos or company logos or ship logos, on the field and sell those. So that'd be kind of a cool way to maybe make it even pay for itself.
For sure.
That is
So,
But
for-
I mean, it has a sensor when it runs out of paint. So I mean, it's not only is it's kind of weird because it's probably one of the cheaper models on the market, but it's also significantly probably the best of the ones we've seen. Of the I can't remember what it's called, the Woozy, I think, and I can't remember the other one. But yeah,
Turf
this
tank.
is it. The turf tank, yep. And I don't think either of those, at least at one point, they didn't have the ability to print out, so they would just kind of keep going. They might have fixed that by now. I don't know, but I know this one does.
So yeah, it's interesting too, and this is sort of a precursor to how Ciora and some of these other technologies coming down the pike will work, right? Because the people that aren't into like the spatial technology of how these things work, so like the turf tank is another. J Pink, you can pull up the turf tank real quick. It's the same premise, right? It's a robot painter, but it uses a base station, right, to pull down RTK GPS and correct itself as it's going. So the tiny mobile robot can use cellular data to correct itself, or what it uses now is a base station network. So like here in Ohio, we have a free network of base stations that's all out here based on like the Department of Transportation. They use it for roads, highway, bridge construction, all that kind of stuff, and it's free to just tap into it and go. And so you can use that to spatially correct yourself and have fairly low fees to connect into some of the more accurate corrections. So anyhow, long story short, yeah, nobody likes to paint. It's a nice thing to do. I think the money thing, as it continues to come down in price, which it just went up in price or it will go up in price on August 1st, that's going to be the big thing, is how badly do you not like painting lines? I won't mention the price here, but it's significant. It's definitely significant. So it's trying to find out like what that equilibrium is for how quickly it can pay for itself, and if it can pay for itself, because there's some places it won't, but they still bought them. But I think it's a good product to have in the lineup, especially when you're a technology company like Autmow is and trying to sell these things. So if anybody wants to paint soccer fields on their their house or anything like that, this is the way to do it. This is your best bet.
Yeah, I mean, I even thought about, I don't know if other places have, I don't know how realistic this is, but I don't know why it's become popular, but they'll put big letters in your, like, happy birthday lettering. You could do something, kind of cool like that, like paint, I mean, maybe there's a demand for it. I don't think there will be, but there's potential that, there's people out there that want for events or something I know for a while it was pretty popular to draw the COVID circles in places to have them go out and, draw the 6 foot distance spacings. So
it's still programmed in there. I think you can still get that as a package. So, all right. Well, hey, Matt, I got to bring us in. Why don't you take us out? Tell us about.
Before we do that,
wait.
we have a
wait.
Yeah, before we do that, we actually have a couple emails that I promised we would address real fast.
All right, let's address them.
All right. So the first one is just a question from Michael. He wants to know, why can't white sugar replace molasses in lawn debris breakdown and nutrient release? Apparently, he wants to know, carbs and molasses seem to be what gardeners think is useful in feedings and temporarily proliferating microbes. Why do those carbs have to be from molasses and not off-the-shelf granulated white sugar?
So kind of my initial feedback is going to be the diversity of I believe there are different types of sugar in molasses. So,
Yeah.
And then you also have some secondary nutrients that are also in molasses as well. some solids that are in molasses that would also have that organic matter component too. So no, it's not just as simple as applying the simplest sugar possible. If you wanted to make the argument that, as far as what we understand about molasses and the positive benefits of it is limited at best, yes, I would agree with that. But to say that simple table sugar would have the same potential efficacy of molasses, I would not agree with, just because there's a lot more in molasses aside from sugar that help it along.
Okay.
I just looked it up because I didn't know. There's sucrose, glucose, and fructose in molasses. And table sugar is just sucrose. So there you go.
And in
All right.
addition, molasses also contains certain vitamins and minerals that are devoid from white sugar. So there's basically a broad spectrum of nutritional benefits from a gallon of molasses versus 10 pounds of sugar.
All right. And then just take 2 minutes. I'm going to show you this soil test.
Oh boy, we're back to we've come full circle. We're back to soil test. Here we go.
And while you look at this, I'm going to give you a little background real quick. So this is from Geoffrey. He says, I have a 4,000 square foot lawn in Houston, Texas. Shade is not an
I was gonna
issue.
say it looks like Texas. Looks like Texas.
He does not have irrigation. He just moves sprinklers around. He's done a 312 fertilizer, some prodiamine in February and May, but he believes he underestimated the size of his lawn by about 1,000 square feet when he did the prodiamine and the 312. So it's a new lawn built in 2020. Weeds haven't been too bad. He's thinking about doing liquids next week or next season. The grass is green and growing, but he wants it more thick. Looking at his test, Ryan, you got a 60-second recommendation for him?
This dude needs all the 111 you can get, and he needs to get on the Ray train of citric acid, sulfur, citric acid, and live his best life that way first. You know, he's gonna look at that magnesium and get a little freaked out, and the calcium magnesium's all whacked out, like just right now. NPK and pH, NPK, pH. It's nothing fun. It's nothing fancy. It's nothing sexy. But by God, you got to get after it.
Ray, what do you think? Same?
Ryan stole the words right out of my mouth. There. I'm done.
Matt?
I'm speechless for once.
Matt, do you have any differing thoughts?
I would apply equalizer and citric acid. End of story.
Yep.
Boom.
Boom. Mic drop.
Easy. Apply it every 2 weeks. There you go.
All right, thanks, guys. That's the end of the mailbag segment.
All right,
That
so
was fun.
real quick before we hop out of here and we move on to the show after the show, I wanted to say this is pretty interesting here. Had my first consultation with Hone, and so you can go to honehealth.com/grass factor, and I took my test. I got it back. I am actually very low in testosterone. I met with the doctor today. We developed a treatment plan. We're going to do some additional testing just to come up with the most accurate and precise way to go about this. So I'm excited over the next few months here to kind of document my success in this. It helps supports the show. It helps supports the channel. Check it out. For $45, you can get started. Real blood test, real people. It's time to take control of your life, your health, your personal life. Let's get this shit done. I hope you join me on the journey.
I just got my
honehealth.com/grass factor.
got my box here yesterday. I was gonna do it live on the show tonight, but maybe next week I'll do my prick.
You got to fast.
Not my real prick. but my other prick.
You wouldn't be able
Yeah,
to
this
you wouldn't be
prick.
able to drink on the show. You can't. You got to fast
No, I'll do it first thing.
and then celebrate after.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, I can't say it's still. I don't want to do what I did the last time 2 shows ago and say the F word before you can bleep it out at the end of the show. So I won't do that.
It's funny, they tested my liver levels and all kinds of stuff, and I was excited to see that came back as I have a perfectly normal, highly functioning liver, and I get concerned about that because on Saturday I do things to my body that no man should do, and it turns out, I've got a pretty damn good clean bill of health. It's just I have the testosterone levels of a very old man, and so we got a treatment plan in place, and I'm just like, I am legit excited. It's funny when you're talking to a doctor and a doctor tells you, he's like, you have no idea the impact this is going to have on your life. And I'm like, wow. And that was legit what he
Really?
said to me. He's like, this is going to change your life. And,
Wow,
and
man.
that for me
Well,
is just so exciting.
That's
pretty cool,
exciting
and-
because, yeah. That is. So
And listen, I'm
exciting
pretty
because-
satisfied with my life. I'm satisfied with my life. I work hard, I play hard, I've got a beautiful family and all this fun stuff. But if I can get more out of it, damn it, I'm going for it. I'm tired of blaming everything that I suffer from on being old, or old and tired, right? And so if this is a solution for me to get away from having relying on these built-in excuses of being a bitch, then I'm gonna go conquer them. I'm tired of being a bitch. I'm gonna go win. All right, let's wrap this
You know-
up. We're going to the show after the
Wrap it
show. What? We're going to the show after the show. If y'all want to come hang out,
Go, do it. I'll say it in the after
if
show.
you want to do that, if you want to check out the show after the show, and the way this works is that there is a link for 10 minutes alone, and then it disappears into the ethos forever to never be seen again. You get one opportunity and one opportunity only to see it live. You have to join. You have to become a member. We have to keep this behind a paywall because if you're soft, if you do not want to deep dive into specifics, if you don't want to hear humor, if you can't handle adult language being spoken from time to time, it's probably not for you, and that is totally okay. That is 100% okay. I'm not saying that everybody needs to do this, but if you're looking for additional content, if you're looking for additional entertainment, that is what the show after the show is. You have to become a member. We will post a link for 10 minutes and 10 minutes alone, and we post that in Dirty Deeds. You will find out what Dirty Deeds is if you do become a member, and you can check it out there. All right. Ryan, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I'm glad you took that liver test to finally, when they were analyzing that, they probably heard your liver singing, "Good old Rocky Top," like that. They just knew that doctor was like, "Did you go to UT Knoxville?"
Rocky Top, you'll always be home sweet home to me. Good old Rocky Top, woo! Rocky Top, Tennessee. Close it. We'll see you on the
sick-
flip side.